Hey everybody, how's it going?
Hey, this is Steven Schinder, and that's Dan Schinder, and we are Yes Shift, a podcast slash vlog that talks about reviews and discusses Yes and its
Interviews.
members, past and present. Yeah, we've had interviews before.
Got some
And
coming up. We'll tell you about that later.
yeah, for sure. And this is another current topic. So Steve Howe has an upcoming solo album titled Guitarscape, and it also features Dylan Howe on drums. And so that comes out September 27th. And we were told that we're allowed to play a bit of one of the tracks, which is called Springboard.
Oh,
The
I thought it
second-
was going to be Gates of Delirium. Yeah, this is a great little piece. So we're going to give you a quick sample. Then we'll give you our review, as well as I'll read quotes from Mr. Howe describing the process and his feelings on the album. Check this out. So there's a little
Yeah,
sample.
I think a little bit of our intro music might have overlapped a little bit with that. So I had to
Sorry, my
read
bad.
the intro and then but
Play it
we-
again?
We can play it again whenever you feel like it. Like
Okay,
whatever
let's
works.
talk just a little bit about it, then we'll play it again. Other people are joining. Feel free to ask questions, comment, pre-order it. If you pre-order it, you get to order it before it comes out.
Yeah.
So if you know Steve Howe, absolute guitar virtuoso, maestro, as John Anderson has called him. He's been around so long. Even, of course, if you go back to Steve Howe's music, all the way back to Bodas and, anything pre-Yes and all the way through, Yes, all the way through his amazing solo catalog. If you think you've heard everything from Steve Howe, this will be a real treat. And the name is perfect, Steve, I think, Guitarscapes, because every song is kind of a whole different genre, and there's some guitar textures I've not only never heard from him, but I've never heard before. It's really an interesting album. It's all instrumental. It's a great listen. Before we dig into some of the particulars, what do you think, Steve? Give some off the top of your head thoughts. I'll play a snippet and we'll really dig in.
Yeah, like you said, the title Guitarscape, the first thing that will naturally come to people's minds probably is landscape, or it reminds me of gardening, and it really does feel like a garden of music that feels very spacey. Like much of these tracks have a very spacey feel. It's all instrumental. It's very soothing. I was listening to this while working on stuff, and you know how busy our lives get, like things get all over the place, but listening to it, I was able to like get in the groove of what I'm doing, and it
That's cool.
really is a calming album and very impressive textures that, like, the more you listen to, like, they really stick with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's play that snippet again. Check this out, folks.
Yeah.
That particular track, let's start with that. And we'll go through some, like I said, quotes from Mr. Howe, as well as the whole track listing, and we'll give our
Yeah.
take on our favorites, things like that. But that song, to me, has like a real laid back, tranquil, almost islandy kind of feel, somewhat tropical in a way, you know?
Yeah, almost to the point where I feel like it very well could have been the first track and still been a great intro to the album. But the actual opening track, Hailstorm, I think has a really cool pace to it. So I can see
Yeah.
why that is the opening. But yeah, like these really take you on like an audio journey, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of different textures and sounds. Some familiar stuff that absolutely you would know it's definitely Steve Howe. And it's Steve Howe on guitars, on any stringed instrument, including bass, as well as keyboard. And he'll talk about that, which I'll read in a moment. And Dylan, his son Dylan, on drums again. They collaborate so well. And Steve, if it's okay, I'll read Steve's take on the process and his feelings about it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so Steve Howe says this album has given me the opportunity to do something different. I bought a Novatron Summit keyboard and found that it had a wealth of inspiring sounds, and it gave me a golden opportunity to create my own keyboard structures, chordal movements, and structures that I thought were a bit different. I think differently on a keyboard. I don't see the chords looking the same, but then I had fun playing around with the guitar to see where that goes. Then he goes on to say, I've utilized most of the colors as I like to think of my styles, and I'm always pleased when I hear them running through and it moves from steel maybe to Spanish guitar. Because it's a different sort of album, I'm not using terribly conventional chord sequences, but things that give me a fresh feeling and opportunities to improvise and stretch out, as well as be melodic and make this a nice, tuneful experience. It's such a great way to put it. Then he says, I began feeding the tracks to Dylan. We get on great, and he seems to know what to play around my guitar. It's almost instinctive. Dylan and I fit together really beautifully. We've had the chance to do this together, so it's wonderful. The bass parts and keyboard parts are pretty interesting. Everything had to be interesting, but also work together. I like doing things that are super fresh, and this album says what I am today. That last paragraph, that's our review. It is fresh, really. Like he couldn't have said it better himself. That if you think you've heard everything from this man, technique wise, stylistically wise, genre wise, sonically, this is new and it's so exciting. It really is. I'm really happy to be listening to this and dig in. And like you said, Steve, the more you listen to it, the more you notice, and it's a beautiful piece of work. I can imagine some of the pieces being used in film, even, or something like that.
Yeah. And we got a comment just now from Gilly Good News who says, Hi guys, how do the keys sound?
I think they sound great. Yeah.
Yeah. There are instances where they do kind of sound like the style of Virgil, the late great Virgil Howe.
Yep.
Um,
His other son. Yeah. I
yeah.
was wondering if that's what you're gonna say. I heard a little glimpses of, and I never want to insult someone by making a musical comparison that was totally not on their radar. I'm sure it wasn't ever an intention, but you know what I mean? But I will
Right.
say there are little bits here and there where I thought, oh, that's a Patrick Moreasm right there, in
Mhm.
maybe a phrasing or the actual sound. But yeah, Virgil for sure. And I wonder if that was intentional or subconscious. Virgil was a masterful musician.
Yeah, like I loved their the albums that Steve and Virgil did together, Nexus and Lunar Mist, which were both
Absolutely.
released after Virgil's passing. And with them having worked together on so many things, maybe some of that has seeped into how he approaches some of the keyboards here, whether intentional or subconsciously, and it does add to that whole like I keep saying, it's like a spacey feel. I feel like I don't have enough adjectives for like
It's
this type of feel I'm trying to describe.
yeah, and when Steve says spacey, it's not like the whole album is like that section, I forgot what it's called, in Close to the Edge, In Her White Lace. It's not like the whole album's like that. I think what Steve means is the music has a lot of space to breathe and there's a lot of openness, but there are
Well, what I'm saying is some of it reminds me of like Outer Space,
okay,
like,
okay.
you know,
And
the
there are some
stars and
grooves and
stuff.
some really great drum patterns. But Steve, why don't you go through the track list and then let's talk about which pieces resonated with each other the most, ourselves the most at first listen.
Yeah, so there are 14 tracks on this, and they generally range from between a minute and a half and 3 minutes. So begin with
And
Hail.
that's unusual in itself.
Oh yeah, because with Yes, we're so used to longer
Yeah.
tracks, but yeah. So we got Hailstorm, Springboard, Distillations, Upstream, Secret Mission, Passing Thoughts, Touch the Surface, Spring Rhyme, Equinox, Seesaw, Gone West, Suma, Springtide, and Steel Breeze, and all tracks written by Steve Howe and produced by him. And Curtis Schwartz assembled and mixed this album. You know, he was also involved on The Quest and I believe Mirror to the Sky. So frequent collaborator with Steve Howe, and great work here.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were the ones that resonated with you the most, Dad?
It's hard. I like it so much that it's hard to single out like real standout pieces because the whole thing's good. But I'm gonna kind of bounce around. I'm looking at the track list. Seesaw, I loved. It's so playful. I loved that. Springtide, I also like a lot. I loved when I saw. So I listened to this in Dropbox files on my phone while I was doing something, and I would hold it vertically so I could see the whole track name and then swipe left after each song. And when I saw Steel Breeze, I knew what was coming. I knew that it was going to involve his, slide guitars, pedal steel, which was just great. Touch the Surface stood out. Spring Rhyme. There's 3 songs with spring, which is interesting. Springboard, Spring Rhyme, and Springtide. Gone West was different. Secret Mission was really cool. And I'm trying now to remember what that Secret Mission evoked. It almost sounded a touch Cuban to me. Which was neat how
Okay.
it does go through different genres. And Steve Howe mentioned in what I read, going from steel to Spanish guitar. So those are some of the standout ones for me.
Yeah, for me, I think it's also tough to pick out a single favorite. These tracks really complement each other pretty well. I do think Steel Breeze, the closing track, has kind of a nighttime feel to it that I really enjoy. And you were also mentioning like, familiarity. The track that Spring Rhyme, the 8th track, it kind of reminded me, and again, I'm sure this was unintentional, but it sounded like it was of the same genre as that John and Vangelis song, I Hear You Now. Like it kind of has a similar feel to it, if that
That's
makes
interesting.
sense.
I could hear that.
Yeah. And like I said, the first couple of tracks, Hailstorm and Springboard, they really ease you into this whole thing. So yeah, I think this is a really great sounding album, and these all feel like they belong on the same album. So as a drummer, I know that I think you're a drummer, right? Like that's the thing
I've
that you do.
dabbled for the last
Yeah.
54.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So what'd you think of Dylan's drumming on this?
He's so good and what makes him so good is, of course, not only his timing. I don't know who it was, if it was Dylan himself or his dad that got that great drum sound. They were recorded great, of course, mixed well by Steve and the other gentleman. But his playing is so tasteful and his placements of things. There's a song that was like, I'm sorry I didn't make notes, but there was a slow ballady almost kind of song where he plays very straightforward. It might be Suma. And right before it gets to the end of the song and fades out, he's doing some really strange off time fills. Do you remember which one I'm referring to?
Yeah, I'm not sure which track it is, but I
I,
can kind of hear it in my
yeah,
head.
I
Yeah.
think it was Suma, and it would just, I'm tempted to just check on my phone, and it would kind of break up the beat, which was really neat. And then he'd be bam, right back on point. Love Dylan's involvement. I love that they're doing that together. I mean, it takes a lot for a father and son to work together. Wink. But but seriously, the other thing about Steve's work on this is, if I remember right, it's Hailstorm. The first song starts out where I thought I was hearing a synthesizer line, and maybe I was, and then it morphs into a guitar, or it's just a weird guitar sound that sounds like a synthesizer. And it made me wonder if he's using one of those guitars back in the GTR days that was basically like a synthesizer guitar. Remember Robbie Blunt used that on
Mhm.
like the third Robert Plant album and played it in concert once. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm referring to. It might have been made by Roland. I don't remember, but it was interesting how my brain went to, oh, wow, that's a really good keyboard part, to, wait a minute, that's a guitar now. Was that the same? So I'm not sure what went on there. And then there's another song, I'm mad at myself, I didn't write this down, that had, and maybe you'll know, the weirdest, strangest guitar sound I've ever heard. And it harkened back to one of the sounds on his first solo album, where it sounds like the guitar is being played through a Leslie amplifier with the spinning Doppler speaker on top, but it's even much weirder than that. Do you know what I mean, Steve?
Yeah, I know the sound you mean, and yeah, like I
It
like
was
how
fascinating.
each of his solo albums, this sounds different from some of the other stuff we've listened to, but you can still tell that it's him, you know?
Yeah, and I want to what I want to do, and I will do it this evening, maybe while I'm cooking dinner, because I love to listen to music while I cook. I want to listen back to back to his first album and then this.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the man, if he never got any better or stretched any further than where he was when he did Beginnings, which was of course right after they did Relayer, he'd still be just so amazing. But when you then hear this album, and for me anyways, and I think back in the catalog of everything he's done with Yes, everything he's done with Asia, everything he did solo, it's like so much music in this guy. And you know what I always say to our team in business, to always be learning, always be learning, always be learning. He's always been growing, always been growing, always been growing. Even though 1975, he could have encapsulated that, left it there, and that'd be fine, right? So to me, that's what this album does. It shows how a virtuoso has still found a way to find new boundaries to, even in his words, stretch for. And it shows in the music. It's so good. It really is. If you're not a Yes fan, if you're not an Asia fan, if you're not a Bodas fan, if you're a guitar fan, if you're an instrumental fan and you want to try something new, this really is something for all those people. I think it's
Yeah.
really, and Steve and I
And
think
I
I
do
could say,
think and I do think fans of those other things could be into this as well to get like a different flavor outside of those other
yeah,
things, you know?
absolutely. And I was going to say, we're not saying this. Well, we don't really know how much Steve likes it. He'll get to that, but we don't say what we say just because we're huge fans of the artist and because we know usually they'll see these things. We put it out there, and if we're not, like we've said, wow, we really hate that album cover. Not this one, but there's been a time where we just were totally displeased with, and we're always honest. So this isn't ass kissing. This isn't hyperbole. I truly love this and have not listened to it enough. I've heard it twice all the way through and a couple tracks a couple more times. And I want to dig it. This is great work by music, like you said. It puts your brain in some sort of focus and you got in a groove. And you were probably doing more brain work than creative work with what you do with Drum Talk
Yeah.
TV or as an author, right?
Right, yeah. I've not tried this with my creative writing, but I've done it with like the other stuff I work on. But yeah, that might be something to try at some point.
Yeah, but I think this music might not be violent enough for your creative writing. Get Steve's books. Look him up on Amazon, and you'll understand that
Well,
comment.
you're referring to me, Steven
Yeah,
Shinder. Like
that's right,
there's
Steven
so
Shinder.
many
Just
Steves.
look Steven
Um,
Shinder up. He's got
but
2 novels out, working on another, and they're horror fantasy comedy. They're great. But what do you
yeah.
think of the album cover? And the only way I could show the album cover, because we
Oh
don't
well,
have.
I can show it on my
Good,
end
do that.
here.
Okay. And
So
I'd like to know your take. I'll give mine, and then people chime in the comments, please.
yeah. So, or I think it'd be easier if you share your thoughts first as I pull
Okay.
it up.
So it's interesting. It's not at all what I would expect. At first look, it looks like Steve's Roger Dean logo, and then looking out a window at some distorted
Right.
arboretum esque stuff, trees. But then you look closer, and it's a guitar either outside that window or superimposed. But it looks like a double or multi glazed glass where you get that repeated image. So if you look closely at that, you see the repeated edges of the guitar, and the headstock on top above that one tree, the pole, or yeah, I think that's a pole outside, and everything's sort of repeated. So it's interesting. It's not quite what I expected. It's like an album cover outside in front of the trees where that image was taken, because it's square. You see the sky in front of the trees, and then you're also looking through a window at it, maybe.
Yeah, because
Does
I
that
think
make sense?
yeah, because we are so used to Roger Dean doing these, like even for Steve Howe's solo albums, and Roger Dean has made paintings of landscapes, so something like that could have fit this, but maybe this is supposed to represent like going outside into a different type of environment compared to some of his previous
Oh, that's a good
albums.
one.
Or maybe it could just been a scheduling thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do really like this
Or
cover.
Roger raised his fee.
Yeah. Well, they got this logo there with Steve Howe's name at least.
I think he owns it. He probably bought the licensing from Roger
maybe
way back when.
And
But
I like how in the word Guitarscape, the letter A is like sort of protruding up above the rest of the letters, kind of like a couple of mountains, or maybe I don't know, maybe even a couple pyramids. Maybe I'm just thinking that because Asia and the Steve Howe connection, but I think that's a cool font.
Yeah, but the album cover itself, to me, it makes you go, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And you kind of dive into it, to see what else you can find. Like, for all I know, maybe there's a rabbit or there's a butterfly, or I still need to. I want to get the actual physical, because I love physical music, and really go over it. Of course, that's why I always have this handy.
Yeah, magnifying glass.
Yeah, examine it.
Yeah. So I also have this other question. So, well, I'll stop sharing this. So in Yes concerts, there tends to be the Steve Howe solo piece, I guess.
Oh, I know what you're going to ask.
Yeah. Do you think he could perform a bit of this, like in an upcoming Yes tour? Like, do you think that would be feasible at all?
My first thought to that, what I think is a great question, because it'd be something new and a way for him to get it out there if he's not going to solo tour, or even if he is. My first thought is, and for all we know, he is. We haven't seen the show,
Right.
These songs are so short, it would not be an imposition on the set list for him to do that. That's number one. Number two, he could even do 3 of them. I mean, the longest song is 3 minutes and 26 seconds. The shortest one is 1:34. So feasibly, logistically, it's a no-brainer for him to do it. If he were to, I think it'd be great for him to do, because none of them, what's different about all these songs is none of them are like the Clap, or rather Clap, Mood for a Day, any of the ones where
it could just be one person.
Right, exactly. So it'd be neat if like he even did one with just Jeff, or if the whole band did one, And I think my
Yeah.
first choice would be Seesaw, probably, or Secret Mission, Upstream. They're also good, and I think would be a great way. Why not promote it? It wouldn't take away from any, Yes stuff.
Right.
And he's got some guys there that can play the parts. It's
Yeah,
like,
and
I wonder if he's
I'd
doing that.
I'd even say, each of the guys in the band could have their own solo piece in between
Yeah,
songs, and, I don't know how into that idea they'd be, but I think that'd be really cool to show, like, different flavors of each of the members. These are some things we do outside of Yes. Maybe Billy will play something from his solo stuff or one of his other bands that he's done, and
yeah.
you got Jay, and John Davison has been on a bunch of stuff, so you could like add a bit more of those types of flavors
Break
into
out a
the
World Trade
set list.
song, do a medley maybe.
Yeah, oh yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then surprise everybody with just a snippet of Time Again or Soul Survivor.
Yeah, I mean that one might be kind of a stretch, but
Yeah.
that would be
Just a guitar
fascinating.
solo from Time Again would be cool.
Oh, okay, I see.
That's
it.
amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, I really enjoyed this album. It comes out September 27th.
But you
There's a
can
link.
pre-order.
Yeah, there's the pre-order link is in the post, wherever you're watching this, and you could probably find it wherever you get your music. So,
And if I
yeah.
just want to mention, Steve, for those who missed it, rewind to the beginning. We play a snippet from the album a couple times, about 36 seconds, and it'll give you one layer of flavors and colors that make up the rainbow of this album, if you will. It's great. It really is.
The spectrum of this album.
There you go.
That was another Steve Howe album, I think.
Yep, and yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
So yeah, people check this out, and you can follow us at Yes Shift on Facebook and YouTube, or just in podcasting apps. You can type Yes Shift, and you'll probably find us. And write to us via yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. And we've got some other great stuff going on.
Oh yeah.
On, let me double check this. I think it's on Tuesday, September 17th.
At noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, and 8 p.m. UK. We've got
Adam Wakeman from Jazz Sabbath. And funny enough, Dylan Howe was also involved with Jazz Sabbath. So we'll have a fun conversation with Adam. They have a new album coming out called the 1968 Tapes.
Yeah.
So
we'll also talk to him about one of my favorite works and favorite concert films, favorite works by Rick Wakeman, and favorite concert films Adam is involved in, and that is Six Wives at Hampton Court. An amazing performance and production. So I'm eager to speak to him about that and other work he's done. It was Adam that worked with the Eurythmics, right?
It's been so long. I'm trying to like look up frantically.
Yeah, we'll sort it out. We got lots of questions.
Look that out. I'm like trying to look at the Six Wives Hampton Court credits. Oh yeah, Adam was part of that. Yeah.
Cool. And we've got another guy somewhat related to Yes. John Anderson is coming on October 8th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern US, and that would be 7 p.m. UK. John Anderson talk about the tour and the new album. John Anderson of the band Geeks True. Stephen and I saw that show about a month ago at the Celebrity Theater in Phoenix. And as Steve says, that my jaw was just hanging open the whole time. We went backstage, hung out with the band for a couple hours, and Steve was saying, he's taken me to concerts, but I feel like this is role reversal. Like he's the kid and I'm the dad.
Yeah.
I was just out of my mind with that. It's also a great album. Great work.
Yeah. So we have great stuff coming up. And if anything changes or anything gets added, we'll like post and update, and, just keep following us. And
other great stuff on Drum Talk TV coming up for those watching. Jeremy Colson's going to be joining us, and just filling our calendars up for the rest of the year to be almost too busy.
Right. But we manage somehow.
That's right.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks.